Costa Rica. She's from Costa Rica, and currently she's a chemist with a master's degree in sustainable energy technology from Eindhoven University of Technology in the Netherlands. And she also has a specialization in biorefinery from Aalto University in Finland. She has relevant experience in applied research projects, engineering, project management, and technology entrepreneurship. And she has worked as a researcher and project leader in Costa Rica and also in the Netherlands. Currently, Audrey is the COO of a search on medical company in the Netherlands. It's a medtech company which is developing steerable, cleanable, and reusable instruments for minimally invasive surgery. In 2020, Audrey was appointed to the EIT Health Women Board as regional coordinator for the Benelux region. And please do not forget to ask your questions in the Q&A window here in Zoom. So Audrey will take them after the presentation. Also, after the webinar, you will receive an email with some helpful links for this webinar, some information how to join EIT Health community, and also registration links for our next 2 webinars from BSB that will take place in June. So without further ado, I will give the floor now to Audrey, who will start her presentation and start the webinar. Yes?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Pablo. Okay, so I would start sharing my screen to all of you. Should be now available for everyone. So thank you very much for that introduction, Pablo. It's an honor for me to be here in this webinar, From Academia to Startup Life, some of my tips to increase our impact as scientists. Of course, this webinar, I designed it in such a way that is addressed to scientists like me that would like to start their own startup, for example, or to start switching to a more business-related position. So I hope that my advices and life experiences could be useful for you, and that maybe you will be able to find some similar situations in which you've been, and that my experience can help you with. So as Pablo was saying, I am a chemist. This picture was taken around 2009. I believe it was my last year as a bachelor in chemistry back in Costa Rica. And I remembered that those 4 years in my background studies were amazing. And today I'm talking to you from the Netherlands, where I am the Chief Operating Officer of a medical company. So this webinar is more or less my storytelling from my switch, let's say, from academic and scientific career towards a more business-oriented position. This picture in the right was taken 2 weeks ago, and it was a very well, it was an amazing moment for us because we were signing our regulatory documents for the CE registration of our first product that we launched to the market from our company. So I was very proud to be there. It was the first regulatory project that I was leading. And for me, it was very significant because as a chemist, I never envisioned myself being able to work in this line of activities. It was never something that I thought it was in the cards for me, some people say. And I'm confident that now I'm able to be successful in what I'm doing thanks to the skills that I learned as a scientist many years ago. So it's not that I completely erased my career or what I learned those years. No, it's that I am able to apply the skills that I learned as a scientist to be a successful entrepreneur and a businesswoman today. This other picture is it's another example of the amazing opportunities I've had now in my career. This was taken last year in the launch of our crowdfunding campaign. That is another event that I never thought I was able to be part of, to be able to raising funds for our company, to be able to speak in front of investors, to be able to be in front of a jury. that is going to analyze your idea and to really assess how good you are, to give you a grant or to give you money as investors. And once again, I know that it was my background, what I learned, the skills I learned as a scientist that made me the successful person I am today, and that will keep helping me to keep growing in my career. So that is the kind of examples I want to give you of what I've been doing from my years as a scientist towards today as the COO. So for this presentation, I divided this in 3 main topics. So the first one is about our self-discovery journey that would allow us to understand what is our potential beyond what our title or our degree says. The second point is how to expand our mindset. And something very important is that we don't have to change our mindset. At the description of this webinar, I remember that I wrote change the mindset, but that is not correct, because there is nothing wrong with our mindset as scientists. We just need to know how to bring in more perspectives to be really able to make a more impactful, to get more impactful results. And as a third point, I want to tell you a little bit, if I really consider that we need more skills, more than what we have already, to be able to be successful in a startup or in business. And I'll finalize with some points to wrap up. So once again, starting with the first point, here I am again, picture of many years ago when I was beginning my years as a scientist. That was maybe around 2010, 10 years ago already. And in my case, as my background was in chemistry, but I imagine that for many of you as scientists, maybe in physics, biology, math, or even engineering, we had very similar experiences. I remember that those years of education were tough. I mean, studying science is a hard career. We had long hours of labs. We need to write very specific reports to be able to really focus on the details. And the exams. I remember, at least in physical chemistry, we had to reserve the whole afternoon and the whole weekend to just make the one exam. So it was physically and mentally exhausting. But at the end, when I was finishing my career, I felt very confident that I knew chemistry in my case. So maybe it happened to you as well, that when you were graduating, you say, okay, I know physics, I know biology, that's what I know, that is what my knowledge is. But we tend to forget that beyond that title, what we are truly learning in all those years, it's a complete set of skills that sometimes we forget that we have. We forget that what we are learning is to be analytical, to be able to do proper research. So we know all the methods of how to make proper research and collect reliable data at the end, to get results and data that we can process properly, to deliver reliable information, reliable solutions to a problem. We know how to solve situations and challenges. And of course, we are capable and to have a very focused and attention to detail. That is what we are truly learning as scientists. And sometimes we forget this because we are so focused on stress and on learning chemistry and doing the lab and doing the exam that we don't fully realize the potential that we have, all the skills that we are learning. And maybe some of you, some of us at the beginning, we are not aware of that until we are forced to this realization, maybe in a challenge, in any situation that happens to us, is that when we realize our potential. And I was thinking that is because we as scientists, we tend to limit a little bit ourselves to what we learn, to the courses we take, to the information that we receive, that we process and we practice. So we place ourselves in this science box. I call it a science box. So we are there, we operate within these limits, and there is where we feel safe. That is our comfort zone. So that is where we trust ourselves. So outside that, everything related to marketing, call it a financial plan or a marketing plan, that is not with us. We are good at research and what we do, and the rest, someone else is going to be taking care of that, and we just don't think about it. And we prefer not to have to do anything with that. But that is something that we slowly need to start changing, to be able to see also the bigger picture, to be able to, because if we really want to be part of a startup or part of a business position, we need to be able to also see what's outside science, what's outside our technology, to really understand how we can apply in a more practical way what we know, what we can do. So remembering, coming back a little bit to my years as a young chemist, I remember that I had my life goals very clear. So maybe you can relate to this a little bit. So I knew that I wanted to be a scientist. That was clear for me. I wanted to graduate and be a chemist. Of course, after that, I wanted to continue my education. I wanted to get a master's degree. I wanted to be a PhD, continue with a postdoc, another postdoc, or whichever it take. I knew that was the path to follow. Of course, because at the end, I wanted to become a professor, you know, to be able to lead a group of researchers. The dream was to become an expert in a topic, in a field, to be able to write, to write articles about it, and to help and to make some impact in that area. And of course, I wanted to win a Nobel Prize. That is always the dream. I guess every scientist at some point in their lives have dreamt about that. And yeah, because what else is there? For me, the image of a scientist was that was very clear, and there was nothing else. For 4 years of my bachelor studies in chemistry, that is the goal that I had in my mind. Because that was what I was learning. It was until my final year of studies. I was actually in the last course of my career when we had a course called industrial chemistry. That was the first time I saw something different, because I remember the teacher of that course was an amazing guy. Our professor knew a lot of things, and he was not a PhD. He was one of my favorite professors, and he knew a lot, but he was not even a PhD. He was not even a master. He was a bachelor. He did a bachelor in chemistry many, many years ago. And he was not even a professor. He was just a lecturer. He was giving this only course just because he wanted to, for fun. It was his hobby, because actually he was not even in academia. He was doing business. He had his own industry, his own company, and he was a very successful businessman. So he knew everything practical that you would like to know about industrial processes, about flow exchanges, balances of forces. It was amazing. And he was this kind of successful scientist that I never envisioned before, that I never thought it was possible to be a successful scientist like this. It was the first time that I started to wonder if that could be a career for me, because I found that amazing, very interesting what he was saying, what he was proposing. And he was the only one in our whole career that gave us a very practical and realistic advice for us that we were about to graduate and about to enter into the real world. Let's say that we had to go finding a job. He gave us a very powerful advice. He said, when you go to an interview, a job interview, and the person asks you if you know how to use this specific equipment, this model of equipment, don't ever say no. Don't you dare to say no. Even if you don't know that model specifically, you as a scientist, you know the principle of operation, you know the technology behind it, and you are capable of learning an instructions manual. So just say yes, trust in yourself, and go ahead. And that really stayed with me, because it also applies to other aspects of life, you know, because sometimes we tend to not trust in ourselves. If we don't learn specifically something, if I don't take that course, then I say, no, I don't know the topic, but we forget that we have the skills of understanding the issue, of being able to solve the challenge. So by that advice, I really took it into practice. That's been very helpful for real life applications in my case. And now that I moved to more to business, to be able to trust on myself to solve the issues in other areas that are not chemistry related, for example. That's what I want also to share with you. Because yeah, of course, being a chemist, or yeah, whichever field you are working now, is more than just the list of courses that we take. It's about all the skills that we learn throughout all these years of education. That is what we have to remember, what we need to have in mind. So going back to my journey, after I finished my bachelor degree in Costa Rica, and as ambitious as I am, I decided to continue with my master's studies, because once again, that was in the plan, right? So I found these amazing master's studies in Europe, in the Netherlands and in Finland, and I decided to go for a different kind of education. So I did this master that was more focused in engineering, in mechanical engineering. But soon enough, I found myself caught in the science box again. Because even though I wanted to expand a little bit my horizons outside the theoretical chemistry, I found myself following again the courses and the elective courses that were more related to chemistry. That's why I picked biorefinery, because it was about chemistry, it was about reactions and improvements of processes and products. Even though I remember that I was super interested on the specialization in renewable energy policies. What happened to me, unfortunately, is that I didn't trust myself enough to jump, to make that change in my life, to go through the policy sector. I believe that I would have been very good at that, but once again, I was limiting myself a little bit in what I knew, that was chemistry and nothing else, and I have to continue this path. So once again, I was there, and I finished my specialization, and well, I was lucky enough to get an internship in Shell Amsterdam. So I went there to do my master thesis, and I was super happy. I have to say that's been one of the best experiences I've had in my life, in my professional life at least. I was developing and leading a research project of creating industrial greases based on biomaterials. So it was super innovative, and the experiments I was doing, the results I was achieving were amazing. Everything was super promising, and of course I was very proud of myself and of the team that was working with me. And I remember one day we had the visit of one of the business leaders, European business leaders of Shell. They travel around Europe, and he happened to be in Amsterdam that week. And he wanted to get to know my project. So we met, and of course I made a super cool presentation with all my results, my line of experiments, and of course my recommendations. And I showed everything to him. He was happy with the results, but then he asked me a question that really caught me off guard, that I was not prepared to hear. He asked me, what about the applicability? And that was maybe the only thing that I was not considering at the moment. I was so focused on my chemistry in my lab, you know, getting the yields in this small scale environment, that I completely forgot the bigger picture. Of course, I am in Shell. They want to make a profit out of what I'm doing. They want to be able to sell it, and they expect someone to buy it, of course. And well, he was asking me also how safe are these processes for the operators that we have that are going to be manufacturing this grease. Is it safe enough for large scale? And how affordable it is, you know, to put all the safety measures around it. And that was something that I was not considering, even though I was proud of the chemistry I was doing. And from the molecular level, it was perfect. It was not applicable in real life. Of course, I was very disappointed, and I had to go back to change a lot of my research. But overall, I felt bad, not because I had to know everything, because of course it's not, we as persons, as professionals, we don't need to be experts on everything. But I felt bad because I was not considering that areas, because I could have asked someone else to join my team and to consider that specific areas that were not something that I could control, but if they were experts in that, they could take care of it, to consider it in my research. And I didn't do it because I was not even thinking about it. I was really not looking at the bigger picture. And that experience really, really shook me. And that triggered on me a desire for a change. I was, after finishing my master's studies, I was ready to jump a little bit in another direction. I didn't want to stay in the lab. I didn't want to continue doing research in a lab scale, I wanted to be part of that other area of something more practical, to be able to always look at the bigger picture. That was something that I wanted to start focusing on. So I started to think, how can I combine what I know with business? How can I be useful like that? So thinking about it, I took a job back in Costa Rica in a research lab, where, well, still in a research lab, but then I was in touch with the industrial sector, understanding what they needed, and then tailor making the experiments and the research based on what they needed and what they wanted to achieve. And after that, I started, well, I received different opportunities. That's when I was able to join this startup where I am today. But overall, what I had to do is to really focus on what motivated me. And that experience in Shell with this business director really changed me, really showed me what really motivated me, because I always felt that as a scientist, my goal was to be able to give solutions, to solve a problem, to give something concrete to society. And at least from my perspective, what really made me happy was to be able to be part of that more concrete part. So I didn't want to leave that to other people, to the business administrators or to the marketeers. No, I wanted to be there with my knowledge of science, of technology, to be able to contribute in that, on putting a product in the market. So once I knew what motivated me, what I had to do is to use my skills, what I knew, to get there. And that triggered some other changes in my life related to how I could move to the business sector. So of course, first of all, I needed to, let's say, define better my motivation, or to find it. And this is something very important that I need you also to understand, because if you don't feel motivated to do this change, for example, to start, to begin to create a startup or to move to a business position, if you don't feel that within, no one else is going to give you that motivation. It has to come from yourself, because you need that to be able to commit to the changes that are coming in your life, because it's full of amazing experiences, but that requires some dedication. The second point, of course, is that I had to update my life goals. Of course, I was not going to win a Nobel Prize anymore, and I had to make my peace with that. I'm fine with that. I can live without a Nobel Prize. It's okay. And I had to understand also that my decision of not continuing with a PhD was also okay, because I remember it was not only the professional change that I wanted to do a little bit, but it was also an emotional and psychological change, because remember, for many years, I believed that being a scientist means that you have to get a PhD and a postdoc and continuing and so on in order to be productive or to be considered a reliable scientist. So I had to really understand that I can still be a good scientist and to use my knowledge into practical things without having a PhD. So I needed to make that kind of update to really be able to move on. And of course, I had to get a little bit creative on how to use my skills. And for example, I remember that as a chemist, we had a very good training on how to write reports. Every week, at least, we wrote 3 different lab reports, and then could be even more by the end of the career. So we knew how to write, we knew how to properly write things. And I really enjoyed it. I remember everyone was always complaining about the reports, but for me, it was a pleasure. And now I am able to use that same skill to write a grant proposal or to help to fine tune the business plan. And now I discovered that I'm very good at content creation. So I can use my skills for marketing. I'm very good at writing press releases, press articles that we share in our websites and on social media. Surprisingly, I'm very good also at web designing. I take care of our own website. So these are the kind of surprises, nice surprises that I've received, that I discovered, let's say, now in my in my position in business that I never thought I could be good at. But because of the trainings that I had as a scientist, I'm able to use these skills in other areas. So I invite you also to try to understand what your skills are, what you like to do, of course, and how you can apply them in other fields. And of course, we arrived to my second topic for today, that is the expansion of mindsets, because that is also something that helped me a lot in my daily activities now and as in a startup. So this is a very interesting topic for me. I hope you enjoy it too. Maybe some of you have heard this before. To expand the mindset from the what to the why. And what it means, it's most of us as scientists, we focus in the area of the what. Most of us are here, and that is completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's logical. We know very well what we do. So, for example, you can say, I am synthesizing this particular molecule, or I am isolating this particular protein for that process. Or in my case, I am developing surgical instruments for minimally invasive surgery. That is what I do. And that is very clear. Almost everyone has that very clear. What happens is that not all of us know why we are doing it. And this is important because our end user, the person who is going to buy your products, that is going to give you money as an investor, they live in your why. That is where you can find them. The why is also the explanation of the needs behind what you are doing. It is very important to have that clear. It would allow you also to get the bigger picture of your research, of your products or your business idea. And that can help you also to get out of the science box where we have placed ourselves, so we can start exploring other areas. And this is actually something very useful because, for example, there might be other people that is also very good at what you do. Imagine, maybe we are not, for sure, we are not the only ones in my company designing surgical instruments. There are many other companies. But what makes us unique is our why. That is how you can differentiate yourself. That is how you can prove to be different and to make a connection with the user, with the person that is going to buy your product, or the investor, once again. This is something that I did not came up with this idea. This is a topic that is very well explained by Simon Sinek, this guy over here. He's been in a couple of TED Talks. He has a lot of websites and he's giving seminars about it. So if you have the time, I invite you to really look for this guy. I discovered him and these explanations of the mindset when I was searching, when I was gathering information of how to make impactful marketing. I was just online and I discovered that this guy was explaining this, and I found this topic super logical and it made sense. And for example, this is one of the phrases that I love, because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it completely makes sense to me, because people want to make a connection. If you want people to buy what you have to present your technology, they need to really believe what you believe, to share some principles at least. And this is something that really stayed with me. And I've been trying, since I discovered it, I've been trying to put it into practice in my daily activities in the company. And that's why I want also to show it to you. Something that I love about this also, that by the way, it's called the golden circle, that involves the why, the how, and what we do. Something that I love is a very scientific explanation of what it is. Because, for example, you can see in this picture in the right, imagine this is a human brain seen from above. So the external part of the brain, that is the neocortex, that is the part of the brain that is responsible for all the rational thinking, all the analytical thinking. So we process facts and figures, information in this part of the brain, which is also the responsible for language. So we can communicate and process communication through the neocortex. So of course it is related to the what we do. This is the rational explanation. But then inside the inside parts of the brain, the limbic brain is the one that is responsible for emotions, for making connections and loyalty. That is the part of the brain that does not process language. So a very interesting example here that describes this is when you have gut feelings. So when you might sometimes know the facts and the figures about any decision, but you still don't feel right about it. So you cannot explain why you don't like this. It's just that you feel that it doesn't feel right. That's because of the limbic brain is not processing, it's not making that emotional connection, it's not feeling the bond. That has a connection with the why and how we do things. That's why this image here also says that normally great leaders and successful companies communicate from inside out. So they really try to trigger the why, to make the emotional connection with people through the limbic brain, using that part in their advantage. So they communicate from the why towards the what to really be able to make that connection. This is something that we also need to learn to do if you want to be successful, because now as scientists, if we want to go to a startup, we cannot think only in the what anymore. We need to start bringing the why and the how to really dig deep in those areas if we really want to make more impact on what we do, and if we really want to reach the clients, the end users, the buyers, or the investors if we need to. So I have a couple of examples here for you. I'm using the company Apple because I think everyone knows it, and it's a very clear example. So imagine if Apple as a company was going to communicate with us as users. Imagine if they say, we make great computers, they're user-friendly and they're pretty. Do you want to buy one? Yeah, maybe it's not the best approach, I think, because they're communicating from outside within, and it's not even reaching, you know, your why. It's not giving you a reason to. Why should I do it? It doesn't make any bond. But so what Apple does? They say, we believe in thinking differently by making products beautifully designed and user-friendly. And we just happen to make computers. Do you want to buy one? Then the message is received differently. You have a motivation because this is triggering your behavior as well. Because then if you listen to this, you say, oh, I also see myself as someone that thinks differently. I want to be also breaking the status quo. I want to be different. So I buy this product, and it doesn't matter what product it is. It doesn't matter if it's a computer or if it's an iPhone or an iPad. You just want to be part of that philosophy. That's what you believe in. So that's why great communication should trigger also the why, to include it. If we really want to be making an impact in people outside of technology, this is a great example of how it should look like. For example, in my case, in our company, we came to the discovery of saying, okay, if you say just that we do surgical instruments, like, nah, it's not. I mean, everyone is doing it. What is so unique? But now what we say is that we empower surgeons. If you ask me, what is your company doing? We are empowering surgeons. We give them the tools that is going to expand their abilities, allowing them to do more. We just happen, as Apple would say, we just happen to make surgical instruments. So if you want to be empowered, use our instruments. That is the kind of play with the words that we can use for our research or for our companies. So I have here some small practice for you. For example, how it would look like if we really want to start determining what is the what, our how, and the why. So when you have the time, it would have been great if we were face-to-face, you know, to do a little workshop. But since this is online, I leave this as a homework for you. So you can try this at home for yourself or with your own company, with your research team, for example. So if you draw a big circle, that is going to be your what. So now I encourage you to start thinking, okay, what is that you do? And once again, it can be, yeah, we are designing a new process for isolating whatever. I am developing a new pill. I am researching a new whatever. That is your what. That is what you do. What you can do here, sorry, is using bullet points, so you can write different ideas. So you can start brainstorming different ways of writing the what's and use it in bullet points. So then you continue with the how, the internal circle, and you can just write here, what are the actions that are making you unique in order to achieve your what? What is what you are doing? So yeah, you are synthesizing something with only organic solvents. I don't know, something like that. Or yeah, in our case, we are using cable-free technology. We are doing everything mechanical movements with no cables at all. That's why we are unique. Here again, write it down in bullet points and write it in different ways. What is your perspective on the how? And then we can come to the final circle, the internal why. So right here, what is your motivation? What is the reason you get up every morning? What is the need you're trying to solve? What is what you want to achieve at the end of your research or with your product? Right here, what is the benefit? What can you expect from the people that is going to be buying your product, or the people, how is it going to be beneficial for the end user of your system or whatever you're doing, your technology? Write that here, your motivation. Again, in bullet points. This is an idea that I implemented last year in our company. So I brought together our management team. So I had there our CEO, amazing guy, expert in finance. I had our CTO, this genius guy that invented our patents of our technology, and me. So we were there, each of us with a piece of paper with the circles. So each of us individually started to write the bullet points of what is the what, the how, the why. And we spent, I think, like 1 hour brainstorming and writing down our own ideas. And at the end, when I collected all the papers, I was surprised when I saw the different ideas that we had, because of course, from the perspective of the guy expert in finance, and then the guy expert in mechanical engineering, and my experience and my point of view, we all have different visions of the what, the how, and the why. And it was amazing to collect all that specifically for the next section that I want to ask you, that is about putting it together to write statements. So now, that's why I was telling you to write it like in bullet points. Now you can start combining the ideas. You can start combining the what that you wrote with the how and the why, or you can start with the why the other way around, whichever you see that makes sense, as more logic for your statement. So you can have different statements of what is what describes better your company, your startup, or your research, and that is super useful. In our case, when I gather all these ideas from our management team, I was able to collect everything in an Excel file, and I've been using it for marketing, for example. It's super useful to create marketing materials for social media publications, for super useful for grant applications, because sometimes you need to describe your company in one sentence. So depending on the forms, you need to write, you need to make short descriptions of what you do and why you are unique. And doing this exercise help you a lot with that. Also, I found it very useful for when you have to define the vision and the mission of your company or your project, your research group could be very useful for that as well, you know, to find the goal that you're trying to achieve as a group. This exercise is very valuable for that. So I really encourage you to do it also for yourself. And if you can, again, reserve 1 hour, 1 hour and a half with your company and make the exercise of the circles. It would be super, super valuable for you. I really recommend you to do that. And why is that? Why is the why important? Because of course it would allow you to really see the bigger picture. by really focusing on the why, focusing something with outside of the technology, it would allow you to really focus on the more in the business side, to really understand what is the user expecting out of you. What are the needs that you need to fulfill? It's not only that you have to focus on the technology and make sure that it's the best, or is the most unique, or is that the thinner instrument or whatever. Maybe that is not what the end user needs. So it would allow you also to focus better your efforts in your research part. Of course, personally, it would allow you to grow, because it would help you to get out of that science box, to be able to grow and to thrive in an areas outside of your expertise that maybe you never imagined you'd be good at. Like what happened to me, that now I am very good at marketing. Who knew that I'm very good at managing projects and leading operations, and also in doing the regulatory activities in my company. That is something that was completely new for me, that I never saw myself doing this, but I found myself actually enjoying it and being very good at it. So that is one example. And of course, all this would allow you to maximize your impact, to really see let's say the results of your research, of your activity being more appreciated, let's say, or being better presented to the market in a way that you can even attract investors, that you can really put it into the market better, easily, and can be easily accepted by the users. This is an example that I didn't want to miss to include in my presentation. I wanted to give you some advice from scientist to scientist of how to improve a business pitch for a scientist. It's something that I've seen that many times we make this mistake. So I want you to help how to improve it for the moment when you have to be out there and to pitch your idea to someone. So normally this is how it goes for us, for a scientist who is not very familiar with a business pitch. So imagine we have a 3 minutes business pitch. So the first let's say the first 2 minutes of your pitch will be all about our technology, what we are doing, the research, how it works. So you would be explaining here how amazing the laser in my microscope is, because of the nanometers, and you start explaining what nanometers are, and the nanotechnology involved in here, and you explain what nanotechnology is. So you go very deep in this section, and then the person realizes, oh, I'm running out of time. They start to see that maybe the jury, the investors are already bored looking at their phones. So you start to rush towards the end, and you explain the rest in maybe 30 seconds. But the rest is actually your business plan. It's actually your access to market plan, how you're going to sell your product, who is your client, who's going to pay for it. So all that important information, you give that in 30 seconds, and then the end. That's it. That's what I've seen normally. And that is what I was doing also at the beginning, because that is what we are trained to do. We as scientists, we're super focused on what we do, and we are proud of it. We want to tell that to everyone. We want to explain in excruciating detail how cool our technology is, how cool our research is. And we forget the why. And that is something that we need to remember now for a startup and for business. We need to focus a lot on the why, because that is what an investor wants to hear. At the end, they want to know that they're giving us money for something that can be sold in the market, for something that people want to buy from us. So we really need to try to find a way to increase the time of this explanation of the why, to spend more time in this explanation. So my recommendation here, and something that was recommended to me also in the past, is to try to limit our explanation of the technology to 1 or 2 slides, 2 PowerPoint slides, and that's it. You explain briefly, use the exercise of the what, the how, and the why, put it in that slide, and move on. Go to the other sections of the business plan that you have there, and that's it. Try to explain more about your end user, how you're going to introduce it to the market, all that parts, because that's also very important. Don't feel scared of doing that, because in the case that the jury, for example, they want to know more about the technology, they're going to ask you anyway in the end. So then is your moment to really start explaining. So then you can start talking about the nanometers and the laser and whatever experiment you did. Then is when you can expand even more. So this is my recommendation, something that I have seen for myself, the mistake I was doing, and something that I want to share with you so you don't make the same mistakes when you get there. So speaking in the third point that I had for today, if we have to develop some more skills, let's say, this is what I have for you. So first of all, we need to know ourselves. We need to know what we are good at and what we like to do, when we enjoy more. That's why I was telling you it's so important that is the self-discovery journey, because we as scientists, we are more than just what the title tells us that we are. I am more than just a chemist. I have all this long list of skills that I need to be aware of. And of course, now, if you know that, you'll be able to extrapolate those skills and use them in other areas. So this is the moment when, as I was telling you, you can use them in marketing. You can use them when you need to write your financial plan or your risk analysis or the marketing plan that you have to do. That is your moment to shine and to use the skills that you've been learning as scientists. Of course, it's also valid that you don't know something, and that is when it becomes super useful to be able to do research. We know how to make research, how to find information. So it's completely fair that we need support. So it's good to find for the knowledge that we need. As I was telling you, I discovered this golden circle information when I was searching for tutorials online that is completely valid. I had to learn how to edit professional videos. So I remember I saw a lot of YouTube videos teaching me how to edit videos, how to make impactful leaflets and brochures to give away to the investors or to partners. That is something that we can easily do. You don't need to, it's not a rocket science. That is something that you can easily do. I mean, if we are able to do the design of experiments, if we are able to survive hours studying physical chemistry, this is something that we definitely can do. And of course, practice. I recommend the learn by doing. It's been a fun experience for me. Once again, speaking about the marketing activities that I do now, because it's fun. It's it's to get creative. It's that creativity that we also as scientists have. That I'm able to be good at this. And of course, at the beginning, the first article I wrote, it was super stiff and it sounded like a lab report indeed. But then little by little, you start to getting some tips from other people. You start networking with others that are doing the same as you are, and you start learning and you start improving. So after doing all this, my recommendation and my opinion is that we already have the skills to be successful as in a startup or to be successful in a business position. But overall, if you still feel like you need a certification in finance or a certification in whatever other field, you can do it as well. I did a certification in project management because I felt passionate about it. It's not because anyone told me that I had to. It's just that I really love management now. And I decided to really do it. And it was way easier than I remembered that learning chemistry was. So after going through all those years of science and chemistry, and now my engineering master, studying management was really a more enjoyable experience for me. So if you feel like you have to do it, I also recommend that for you. It's very fulfilling now. That's what I have to say. So we're almost done with this. So as a wrap up, I have some final points for you. As I've been telling you a lot, and I hope you have it clear by now, is that we as scientists, we have the basic skills already. Our knowledge is not the title in our degree, in a university degree. It's all the skills that we learned through all the trainings that we did, through all the labs that we've been through all the practices we've done. Those are the ones that we need to use in to extrapolate them in these new fields. Something important is what we need to trust in ourselves. We are very smart. So I was telling you, we survived all these years of training. This is something that we can do. Business is something we can do. Of course, if we allow ourselves to expand to the why a little bit, but overall we need to trust in ourselves. I remember there was a phrase that I heard a lot during my studies, is that all I know is that I know nothing. Don't repeat that, because we know plenty. We know a lot. Maybe you're not an expert in marketing, but you have really the skills to be able to do it successfully. And you'll be surprised, really, you'll be surprised of the things you can achieve. So also remember to expand your mindset, always including the why. Having that very clear is going to help you to be more impactful in your technology, in the product you want to bring to the market. Another recommendation is to find a mentor. We are very good as scientists. We are amazing. I'm very proud to be a scientist, but we are not, we don't have to do everything alone. It's always good to have that person you can trust next to you. So find someone that can guide you through all this process. Someone maybe could be a co-founder, someone that you know that could help you to set up everything to better solve the challenges that are coming. I was lucky enough to have this mentor with me that was the CEO of our company, the guy who really saw my potential as a professional, and was crazy enough to bring a chemist to do the management of the projects of a healthcare startup. So I was lucky enough to have him in my growing process in business, at least. And my final recommendation is to stay curious. That is something that we as scientists have, and we should never lose it. We should always stay curious. That would help you and motivate you to keep learning, to keep searching for these, for example, tutorials online, to find experts that can help you in marketing, in finance, whatever. Always stay curious, and that's going to help you to keep growing. So this is what I have for you today. I just want to say thank you very much to my colleagues at Sir John Medical, Beno and Tim, the amazing guys that I've been in this venture with in our company. Thanks to them, I've been growing a lot as a businesswoman without losing sight of my scientific background, I have to say. And of course, to EIT Health alumni and the Marie Curie Alumni Association for inviting me here today. It's been an honor. So for everyone that has been in this presentation, now you can also be part of the EIT Health alumni. So if you have your phones there, you can open the scanner, or if you have an iPhone, I believe that you can just directly take a picture of this and register. I really encourage you to do that and to check out the other events that we have in this network. So thank you very much. That is what I have for you today, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Audrey, a lot for your presentation. It's very inspiring and a very nice talk. We have a few questions which were asked in the Q&A window. Just a reminder to all of our attendees today, if you have a question, please put it in the window for textual questions, Q&A, in the bottom of Zoom. Also, if you want to ask a question by talking, it's quite possible as well. So just raise a hand and then Audrey will hear to you talk. But first, let's perhaps go to some of the questions in the Q&A chat, Q&A window. You can also notice that you can upvote the questions. So if you like some of them, you can bring them to the top. So I'll start from the most voted question. So Laura asks that sometimes a PhD can be mental and emotionally draining, and graduates can end up with no motivation. What strategies do you suggest to redevelop and find a new motivation?
Yeah, that's true. emotionally, I felt it more than physically, of course. But really, most importantly, the motivation should come from us, from within. And that is something that also my mentor has to remember me sometimes, because we tend to despair in some situations. But my recommendation in those cases is to really refocus on what in remembering your goal, what you want to achieve, what is that motivates you. Remember that, focus on that, and take some time off. Really. Don't be so hard on yourself. So try to also to have those moments that really reconnect you with yourself, with what you like to do. Try to relax, to go outside, think a little bit, forget about the problem, and then when you are mentally strong again, try to come back and to keep and to keep solving the situation, and to keep trying to move forward.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I can only add to that myself. I support that. And also Ines asks, what can an undergraduate student do when the what and why are still unclear?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
What can an undergraduate student do when the what and why are still not clear? What?
Well, that is a very good question indeed. I think in this case, normally we as scientists, well, all of us, most of the cases we know the what, but in this case, if that is not clear, you should start with the why. So then what is your motivation? And then it's important to do this exercise that I showed you, apply it on yourself. So start thinking, what is that you like? What inspires you? What would motivate you to get up in the morning every day? Where do you want to go? So from that, you start moving to the how. So how can you start moving towards that goal? And then what can you do? So start not from the what, but start from the why. That would be my recommendation. So you get more inspired, let's say, and that would help you to maybe to redefine the career or the focus you want to have in your life. That is my recommendation from a more personal application of this exercise.
Yeah, sounds good. Also, Edzgi, correct me if I pronounced it incorrectly. Sorry. So he asks, what would you suggest for academia transitioners to find the success role in industry? A mentor could be super useful, I think, but how to find the convincing one? Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. I think those mentors just appear in our lives when we least expect them. Sometimes for example, in my case, the mentor ended up to be the CEO of a company, and I did not expect him to become a mentor, but little by little we started to work together. And about to find a success role in industry, that is really, once again, depending on what you like and what you want to do. So that is something, maybe as I was saying for the last question, to really focus on your why first. If you don't know your what at this moment, focus on what you would like to do. What really, how do you envision yourself? What would really make you happy? What is what you enjoy doing? Focus on that, and that would make things a little bit more clear to you. So you would be defining, okay, what are the in which industry I would like to be working with, or if it's any industry, okay, what kind of role do I see myself as a project leader, or do I see myself as an advisor, or do I see myself as a, I don't know, consultant? So first of all, apply this exercise on yourself to understand how do you see your professional career developing, in which area, and based on that, you'll be able to make decisions of where to go, which kind of industry, and which kind of role.
Thank you. Laura also asks, any suggestion on how to find a good overlap between your why and something marketable? Chemistry, medicine, and engineering might be quite marketable, but math, physics, conservation biology could be less so.
Ooh. Well, yes and no. It's true, yeah, chemistry, medicine, engineering, that has a lot of practical applications. But for example, math, I know that math is a field that right now has a lot of focus in the business part, in the financial part. I actually know a couple of mathematicians that are super successful working for banks, for example. So that kind of line, just talking about math, that could be very practical. If you develop an algorithm, for example, that would allow you to improve certain kind of predictions, of market predictions for finance, that would be great. And the same could be for physics. Yeah, biology. Yeah, I haven't been in touch with many biologists lately, but there's always a way of understanding, and that it's something that you can also only get when you really get out. Let's keep with that, with the science box. I came up with that. Maybe it's not the best way of saying it, but as soon as you're out of your comfort zone, you'll be able to meet more people. For example, if I only stayed with my chemistry colleagues and my chemistry friends, all I'm gonna know is chemistry. And maybe I wouldn't know even many applications, because most of the chemists I know are only theoretical chemists. So I wouldn't know what were the applications of chemistry in real life. So my suggestion, my recommendation of finding this overlap, these opportunities, is really to get out and more, to really interact more with people in different fields, start networking more, so you'll be able to see what is the market need. So you can talk to people from different industries, from different areas of expertise. So you'll be able to see, oh, okay, maybe a chemist would be good at this, or maybe, yeah, as I was telling you, a mathematician can be good for banking. Who knew? You see? So that is my suggestion, really try to get out of the comfort zone, try to go to events where you can really network from people of other areas and just start talking. Most of these opportunities come just, as coincidence, just in a random conversation that you discover synergies in other areas. That is the most amazing stories that you would hear. So that is what I recommend for you.
Yeah, thank you. I also know a few mathematicians working in banks. I think all of us do.
Yeah, and they make very good money.
Yeah, I know. So let's move on. Also, Laura asks, have you encountered any cultural barriers in your career path? If so, how did you manage them?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I am a Latin woman working in the Netherlands, so it's a cultural shock for sure. It's something that you just need to get used to. Every now and then I have some kind of misunderstanding with my colleagues that are all Dutch, of course, but it's just nothing that you cannot fix with a conversation and maybe taking some time off, calming down and really talking clearly. So I think the cultural barriers are always going to be there in one way or another. And I'm sure that if I go back to Costa Rica now, with what I've learned, I would have, I believe, also some sort of similar barriers over there. So it's going to happen everywhere. So how do I manage them? It's just, yeah, go out, being there, trying to solve the issues, trying to be professional and talk. Communication is key in everything and anywhere. So I apply that for all the aspects in your life. Try to talk yeah, don't make assumptions, because again, as a culture in a cultural field, people make the assumptions that that you behave or that you think the same. But in this particular case of cultural differences, don't make any assumptions. So if there is a topic that for you is sensitive and for the others is normal, so let them know that you're not comfortable with that, for example. Or yeah, just be clear in what your ground is, and if something bothers you or if you're not okay with something, just let them know, and they would understand. My experience is that everyone has always understood what I said when I'm not comfortable with something, and yeah, it's just about communication.
Yeah, I agree. We all live in quite a globalized world, especially in Europe. So speaking is the best way, I think. Then we can, I think there are a few more questions, so we can take them as well. Do you feel there's a seniority limit for the transition? Is there really something like too much qualified? I've heard it a lot. Yeah, me too.
For the transition, I mean, from the academic to for a startup, I suppose. I've been in a couple of events of startups, and I've seen a couple of mature, let's say, scientists developing and pitching their idea. I don't feel there is a limit. The only problem is, let's say, is that the older you are, the more marked in you are these limitations, let's say, and the harder it is for you to expand to include the why. So this example of a scientist doing a pitch is something that I've seen with the senior scientists that really want to try to do a business pitch, because they're so used to be like the professor of explaining what they do and where is the atom and how to find the molecules, that they forget that it's a business pitch, that you actually need to focus on business. So maybe that is the only disadvantage of having someone more senior doing this transition, but it's not impossible. Something as too much qualified, I don't think so. In the business sector, I've never heard it. I've heard it as scientist, yes, but never for someone that wants to start their business like that. Actually, the more senior you are, the more experienced you are, the bigger network you have already. So there's a lot of advantages with that. So I don't see an age limitation for doing this transition, not at all.
Thank you. Margarita also asks about the ratio between men and women in your company. Did you ever feel intimidated by being a woman in the startup world?
It's a very curious question. I'm very proud to be a woman in the startup world, and especially in the management team, because that is not very common. And actually, I'm involved in a lot of activities and events that promote women in leadership roles, because overall, I have seen that we are not too many, and that is very disappointing. In my case, the management team, we are 3, and I am the only woman. But I don't find that as a problem, because the other way around would be 2 women and 1 guy. So I don't want the guy also to feel intimidated. So it's the same. I don't feel a problem there. I just feel like an overall in the industry, women are normally, well, we are very good as researchers and in the technological parts, but when it comes to management positions, not many of us get there. So that is the distinction that I want to make, and that is the kind of promotion, you know, to promote that change. That is the kind of change that I want to see. Intimidated I've been sometimes, not very often, just every now and then. Especially if it's, for example, if it's about manufacturing, that I need to go to visit a manufacturing site, but it's unfortunately it's about cultural stereotypes, you know, that normally you don't see a young woman making decisions in a factory. So sometimes, yeah, in those situations I feel kind of overwhelmed, but in my daily activities, no, I don't see that as an issue, fortunately.
Thank you for your great answer. I also noticed there are 2 more questions in the normal chat. So we'll, if you have a few minutes, we can also answer them. So okay. One is from Elizabeth, and she asks, did you ever have to navigate difficult situations from being a woman? Okay, in the STEM and business, so it's quite similar. If you have anything to add.
Navigate difficult situations. Oh. Yeah, no, nothing that I can think of right now. Really caught me off guard. Yeah, like what? Yeah, it's like the overall daily situations of managing people. Like in the past, let's say as a scientist, I used to work very independently. So I knew what my job was, and that was it. I wrote my results, I submitted the results, and that's it. So now I need to be more, as a manager, working more with employees, trying to help them grow as well, to develop and making decisions, more contact with people in that sense. So it's been a challenge also for me, because once again, I'm focused. I used to be focused on myself, so I know how to manage things with myself. So I had to lose control a little bit, try to let other people do their jobs and to rely on other people. So that could be one, but for something else, whew, I cannot think of other example right now.
Thank you. Janet from Ecuador also asks, so she says, thank you for inspiring me. What advice can you give me us to improve our skills on innovation business? Where to start?
Well, where to start first? I recommend what I did. So it's just to start searching online. If you have a specific question, the more specific you are, the more concrete the answer you get, of course. For innovation and business, I knew that I need to find a way to sell myself and sell my ideas better, because again, I only knew concrete answers of a scientist. Again, what I do, and that is what I do, and that's it. But it's not very appealing, you know, for normal people, let's say like that. For the rest of the humans, they don't speak scientist. So first of all, I needed to learn how to communicate with normal people. So forget about fancy words, forget about talking about nanoscale, forget about using strange words people cannot pronunciate. So I had to start with that first. Look for examples, look what you like to do. So if you know already in which area you would like to start in business or innovation, do a quick Google search to see how other people are doing. It's always very good having examples like a reference. So what I did is, okay, I want to start communicating about innovative instruments in the medical sector. So how are the other medical companies doing? So start doing a quick search. Okay, how do they communicate? How do they make communication in Facebook? How do you talk to people? Do they address to scientists in fancy terms, or what are the normal words they use? So that is what I did. And at the beginning, it was very illustrative for me. So I knew more or less in which area to go. And from that, I started to dig deep. Then, okay, how can I edit my pictures in a way that it looks attractive, you know, that I can make a scissor look attractive to people, you know, that they would like to buy it. So then I started to get more in deep, like in tutorials, how to edit pictures to Photoshop, to make nice videos of our instruments, how it looks nice. So little by little, I started to get more into the business side of it. So overall, just start doing by a quick search, find some reference, some reference points from you, from the kind of industry that you would like to where you're working or you would like to start working. And from then you can see more or less in which direction you need to dig deeper, for example.
Thank you. I noticed one more question popped up in the Q&A window. So Pablo asks, you suggested to make a project management course, I guess to take. What is the main lesson learned from it? What you can not get in a learn by doing approach?
Okay, yeah, my project management course, I loved it, but the funny part is that I knew already most of the things they were teaching. So, you know, after all these years of working in business, I decided last year to make this project management specialization. And what I discovered is I already knew this. So what I was learning was maybe to get the templates, for example, that was useful for me. So if I want to start with a project charter template and how to keep track of things, so I knew like the practical tools. That was the useful part for me, because that is what I didn't have. But overall, how to focus on the risks, how to really track a project, that were the things that I was learning, that I learned by doing, that I didn't know of. Was until I took the courses that I realized, yeah, but I've been doing this, tell me something new. Okay, so that is also what I tell you, that is super valuable, that we trust in what we know already, because it really surprises you. It's amazing what we can extrapolate to other fields. So yeah, that is what I could not get from learn by doing approach was these concrete tools, for example, these templates that were super useful for me, for example, as a project charter to start a project, or the matrices that every project manager uses to classify the stakeholders of a project by importance, of how to prioritize the risks of a project. Those tools, I said, the practical tools, they were super useful. But for the rest, for the basic, I knew that already. It was very funny to realize that.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That was the last question, I think. So thank you very much, Audrey, for inspirational and great talk. I also would like to say thanks to Robin and Miriam from EIT Health Alumni. Yeah, so shortly you will receive an email, you guys who join our webinars, thanks for that as well. You will see an email with useful talks to this webinar, so the presentation, and also some information how to join the EIT Health community, and also registration links to the next two webinars of BSB, which will take place in June. Yeah, so I think on this we can kind of end, and thanks a lot, Audrey, again. It was really great.
Oh, my pleasure. And when you get my presentation, you will see in the final slide, there is my email. So if someone wants to contact me, if you have any extra questions, please do so. I'm happy to help. So don't be afraid, don't be shy. Just text me, or you can look up for me in LinkedIn or Twitter. I respond almost every day. I'm almost there every day. So I will be very happy to add you to my network.
Great. Let's stay in touch, and maybe we'll see you again in our webinar series. And this webinar was recorded, and it will be also online on the YouTube channel of EIT Health Alumni, and also a BSB playlist of Marie Curie Alumni Association.
Super.
Great. Thanks a lot, and have a good rest of the day or evening or wherever you are in the world. And stay healthy.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.